Now, the goal of this game, my Pax Romana scenario, is for those of you just watching, I'm new at this game, so I'm learning as we go along, and we might have to make some changes. And if you're doing your own scenario, you might want to make changes. But the scenario here is I want to have 4 people play this game. One person will be a Roman loyal per se. Another Roman player will be the rebellious side, and then 2 barbarian groups. And I'm going to set out the victory conditions for each player, and the goal is to have each player be able to have a chance to win this game, no matter if you're a barbarian or not. And here's the victory conditions, and I lay them out in this game, and it follows the scenario's victory conditions. The number 1 victory you can achieve is to be Optimus, and that is control of 110 cities and control the Germania map up to the Albis River. So you need to have control up to here. So the Roman has to have control up to here in this board. The second highest conquest you can have is called conquering. Conquering is you have to have control of 85 cities. And cities are these little red things right now, but obviously you can make more. All these colonies you can turn into cities, but 85 cities plus the control of this area right there in Germany up to the Albis River. And then you have triumph, and that's 74 cities. And same as above, 74 cities and control of that. And then there's just victory. Victory is if either Roman player does not achieve this, controlling getting an Optimus, a conquering, or a triumph, then you add up points. And points are going to be gained throughout the game. The Roman players and the barbarian players are going to be tallying their points up, because if they don't achieve a instant victory with the goals I just discussed, then the game will end at 200 AD, and whoever has the most victory points wins. And victory points are going to be gained by controlling cities, which I believe I'm going to have at 2 points apiece. It's going to be winning battles. A major battle win is 5 points. A minor battle win is 3 points, and a skirmish is 1 point. And then there may be some other things, and I'll go over other victory points that you can get for doing certain things. And we'll talk about those as the game goes. And then it's whoever has the most victory points will win this game if the barbarians can stop the Romans from achieving their goal. So it almost works like maybe the Romans are going to work together, but at the same time they're working against each other, just like the barbarians do. And at sometimes the barbarians will even work with the Romans if they have to. So we'll see how that goes. Now, to continue with the map setup, what we have to do now is, since this game begins in 107 BC and the earliest scenario they made for this is 74 BC, some of these cities are not around. Remember, we're starting our scenario after a lot of the Republic, as they call them, defensive wars. Of course, the Punic Wars, the Italian campaigns, the 4 Macedonian Wars, the 2 Illyrian Wars, and 2 Syrian Wars. So we're starting after those. So some of these Roman cities are not really Roman cities yet. And so here's what I do. I have to cover them. And I like to cover them so they're not noticeable. Be familiar to you, but I use these markers to cover these cities. And the 3 black, they're different colors because these will belong to Armenia. The 3 gray will belong to Asia. These, I think there's 8 or 9 orange ones here, belong to the Syrian minor country. These 4 belong to Arabia, and these 2 belong to Judea. You can see they're all Roman cities, so we cover them because they're not Roman cities yet. So nothing out here in 107 BC is a Roman city. This is because the conquest of the Punic Wars, they did establish some cities here. So now we place, and it'll be written in order. Now we place the cives. The cives are militia. They go in every single city that is on the board. So even if you're barbarians, you have civilians in it. That's what the cives stand for. Now there's not enough cives to go over the entire game here, because remember, it's enlarged. But I make do, and I'll show you what I got. If you follow the rules that I have, the cives are placed. You place red, loyal. You'll notice there's different color cives. There's the red, and there's the purple side. Purple is rebel, red is loyal, means it belongs to the loyal player. If it's green, it belongs to the barbarians, and if it's tan, it belongs to minor countries. I didn't have all of the tan. You run out because they don't expect, again, the game like this. So these, you may recognize, there's some Third Reich pieces, but these are considered the civis tan units. Okay, I had to fill in here, and then these are Parthian. So Parthians cities, instead of, again, I don't have enough tan, I just used rebels because they're far enough out of the game that they won't come into play. There's a book in the book, it shows you the units and what everything means. Having this little diamond with that moon-shaped crest in the middle means it is a civis unit. The archer means it's an auxiliary type, so kind of like skirmishers. So that's what that means. So there's a lot of skirmishers you see, but there are some civis, like this one, that is just infantry. And it'll be the black moon covered. And it doesn't matter to me. I don't really specify where we're putting the full infantry ones compared to the auxiliary ones. You guys can place them any way you like. So that is the civi setup. That's the next thing you do. And they look different, of course, because we have 4 different games here. I just noticed I didn't have 2 Armenian cities covered with civis, so I just put them down. Now when it comes to setting up the minor countries, you will go to Scenario 3 in the scenario book, Scenario 3, and you will set them up per Scenario 3. Now as far as the Asian unit goes, according to Scenario 3, I write it down, it has these 2 units. They say Asian on it with the elephants on the back. And it says what cities to put them in. Scenario 3 is the oldest dating scenario that we have to play with in 74 BC. So I use this scenario to set up the client forces. And just follow the rules of what they say, what the forces they get and where they can go. And if they're a Roman client state, or if they're neutral, or if they're independent. And there's rules governing how you will recruit these and how they will come into play. But any modifications that I make, they'll be in my notes that I have on Google Docs of this scenario I'm calling Pax Romana. Any modifications I make to them, like add a unit, or this unit has to set up in this city, and so forth. What I write in my rules is these units are going to be placed in any one of these cities, and since the Roman player's allowed to place them, I'm going to put one there and one in Iconia. And I just write that in the rules just to try to keep it even. Now, it also states that all Asian units will have the elephants on the back, and I'll list which ones they are. And it's all these that start in the recruit box. This is what can be recruited from controlling Paragama. The leader will come in, I wrote it right here, he will come in at 47 BC. So I put him in that little box just to remind me. So that is the Asian setup. So the next on the list is Pontus. If you go to the rule book, it says it starts with these 3 units. In my rules, I'll tell you to add Mithridates, which was the 6th. He's the one that gave the Romans a lot of trouble, so I give him a leader rating 2. This is an extra Mithridates that I had, because remember, I got double of everything here. So I just made him up. And in my rules, I also state that the ship and one of these has to start in Panticapium. So they'll start there. And Mithridates and Warband there will start at Sinope. They're independent, the way I'll have them listed, independent client state. So once they go to war, remember, if they get Paragama, which they're going to be able to do fairly easy, there's a lot of Asian troops to recruit. So it's going to get pretty dangerous and hot over here, just like Sulla had to deal with. And I will also state in my book that Pontius Pharnicus, with the star on his back, comes in at 63 BC. So I mark it there and I put him in the box just to remind me. And then I also list what they can recruit. And this will be the units, and they're all listed as the star on the back, the white star. So this is what's in the recruit box. So Egypt, I'll just put set up exactly as scenario 3. And this is what they have, and they're all in Alexandria. And they are a independent client. So Syria gets the forces just as they're listed in scenario 3. However, they don't have their own. They would just use a tan force, whatever it may be. So in our game, this is what they come up with. And I'll have them listed. They're Roman units. 3 of them are loyal Roman units, and that's what they are. And one will have the axe on the back. And then that's what Syria starts with, and you can put them on any Syrian city. So Syria will be listed in the book. I'll have it written down exactly what they have, and then I write what forces we should use, so you know how to find them. And the Judea gets 1 force, and it's the 2nd auxiliary with the Roman on the back. So there's Egypt, there's Judea, there's Syria, this is Armenia, this is Asia, and that's Pontus. So far what we have. Now the Arab unit starts in the recruit box, and I have a little spot for Arab, and it is recruited per rules. So the Alani unit in scenario 3 gets this, and then I put it right here because this, the only way this can be recruited, and I write it in the rules, is by an event. And that's per the scenario. But I put everything in the rules so you'll understand when these are coming in. So that is the client setup. Now, barbarians come in, and I have it written down. Barbarians come in per rule 15.0, and that's how they'll play it just like the game says they play it. The Germans will be yellow, the Dacians are green, the Sarmatians are blue, the Gauls are green, and the Brits are blue. So even the barbarians are color-coded. Now, when you get the Gallia game, the barbarians for Gaul are going to be green. However, they give you these yellow barbarians and the other set of the orange. And what these are, no, excuse me, the orange comes with the Trajan set, but these are only used when the Romans are fighting in Gaul and Germans become involved and they start coming into the Gaul map. And it ain't like you have to know all this. It's just when an event arises in Gaul and you're fighting in Gaul and it says, oh, the German barbarian forces can form around this tribal center and come in, and it'll tell you what forces you get. This is the force you will use. So that's ready to go for the Germans getting involved. Okay, the orange ones are the same. We use them for a little event that takes place, and I'll have it listed. So I just set those there. They'll be coming into play. Now this is the Parthian force, and you just follow scenario 3 the way you set it up, and this is how they asked to set it up. And then in the client forces recruiting box, I just put, it says what to put in there, the impetus, and which is supply, and 3 leaders. And then these are just markers that they use, and these are their stratagems. And I write down what the Parthians get to use. They get 2 military, 3 political, and 2 agents. And then these are just markers that every force will get. The exertius, it just means army. In other words, if you get too many, you can stack as many units as you want in this game, as high as you want. So you can take them off and put them on a box like that and just put this marker down. And wherever that marker goes, this huge stack can go. You can stack as many as you want in an area. So now, that's just the Parthians, but then they have the satraps forces. So these are the satrapy forces. Huge armies. So the Parthians are huge. Okay, and this all starts as recruits. Now, according to the rules, you get to randomly pick any four of these. So you do, and yet they have to set up within 1 hex of each other, or not more than 1 hex on any city. So I just put them right there. Again, I'm just setting stuff up. I don't know the exact. And that concludes all the minor country setups, client states and neutral client states. And then for Egypt, Cleopatra will come in. She'll start at 46 BC. I wrote it down right there. Now, these rest of these forces are all set up by the emblems they have on the back, the reference. Remember, you can play this as keeping these units upside down. You don't know what they are. But we try to keep them all the same. So when a force is called from some event or some barbarian force called to come in, we try as much as possible to keep them together with the same emblems. You'll see this barbarian unit has this axe. These 2 barbarian types have this kind of axe. But they can join either side when an event calls for it. Now the game started out by being at war with the Numidian kingdom under Jaguruthka. And since we don't have leaders, all the leaders that we need here, and I have double units, I just took this Numidian unit, changed it to Jaguruthka, and made him a rating 2. So the forces I have listed in the book, and they're all with horses on them. And in case you want to play it upside down, and they start at Sirta. Now this is one setup, the Mauritani kingdom, that I'm just using excess pieces and double pieces that I have because they're not going to be in the game long. They're only here for a minute, maybe, we'll see, but I have them written down, and it's these units right here, and I'm using this leader rating as a 1. He's King Boetius, basically. But he starts here, I say in the book, because they do come to the aid of the Numidians for a short time. So this is what's in play. The Romans are at war with Numidia. Okay, so for the Roman setup. The Roman setup I have listed in my book. Now these markers, these leaders, don't come with any of the Roman games. They come with the expansion. So that's why I was able to move to 107 BC, because I have Marius and Sulla in the expansion. And this, now each consul basically is allowed to have 2 legions and 2 auxiliary legions. In times of distress, they're allowed to double the legions. So what I'm allowing here is Marius and Sulla to have 4 legions. Now they're all going to be veterans. That's the V in the middle. The R is recruits. Now, based on these numbers, again, I haven't played this game yet, but just move, you have to do a discipline check. And based on how well experienced your legions are is going to depend if they're allowed to move and stuff like that. Now, the leaders can expend those stratagems to help them to move, and they can also replace their middle number, which you see, Marius is an I for Imperator, Sulla is a V for Veteran. They can replace these for any other troop's number. So when he goes to make his discipline roll, instead of using the recruit chart, he can be using Solo's veteran. Now Solo can only do it for one unit, so this guy would still have to roll on a recruit chart. But that's the way that works as far as I know right now. So we are going to, this is what their starting forces are. They get to double the legions up. So there's 4 legions, the 2 auxiliary legions, the Impetuous, that's the supply, and the engineer, and then they have a fleet. All these can start in any one of these 3 cities as Marius, who's the main leader. That's why he has his Imperator marker, because he's the supreme leader here. And we go, supreme leader means he is in command. Solo cannot be the supreme leader. Even though Solo's rating is better, you can still use Solo stratagems for Solo up to 3, and Marius you can only use up to 2, but he is still the Imperator, and there's other little rules for that. So this force will start here. Now one thing that I've read in the rules, when you go to fight, the auxiliary units, light infantry, spear throwers, stuff like that, are going to be allowed to shoot first. And then the legions and the cavalry come into play. I would like to have, of course, the auxiliary up with at least a couple legions here, I would say, with Marius. Maybe have the supply with him. Again, I don't know how this works. That's why we're going to practice and see, and put him there. And I think I'll put Sulla with 2 more legions behind him holding Utica. And then here I'm just going to put the fleet. And the Romans will move first. The other force of the Romans will get is a council. Now I had to make this. Remember, I make some of these markers here, and I just got a red marker unit, and I wrote on it. Now he's allowed to have 2 legions, and I wrote down what they are. Okay, so that is the Roman setup. That is the enemy setup. This is how. Oh, and then there's one more thing we do, and then the game is set up, ready to go. And that's, if you read what I got here in the book, I talk about the Roman forces setting up. And what I've come down to, and I know Rome has a lot of years and years of changing their armies and their formations and their legions. However, what I'm using here is there's allowed to be 25 Roman legions on the board. That's all they can do at this time. That's the most they can have. And it doesn't matter if they're loyal. It doesn't matter if they're rebels. But 25 Roman legions. Now, in addition to that, they're going to be able to raise 25 auxiliary. So it's 25 Roman legions, 25 auxiliary, and then in addition, they will be able to raise certain legions depending on the areas they control. So there's going to be quite a few legions on the board. Now, after AD 1, when Octavian became emperor, that number was raised. So when we start the game, there's going to be 15 legions on the board. Now, Marius is starting with 4 veterans. Capeo will have 1 veteran and 1 recruit. In Rome, there's going to be 1 veteran. The rest of these provincial major cities are going to have recruits in them. Spain will have 2. And then I have it all listed on the board. 15 legions start on the board. Now, if I'm allowed to have 25 total until AD 1, that means 10 of them can still be recruited. And so in our recruit box, we are going to now have 10 Roman legions that'll be recruited. And I got them written down which ones, because remember, the rules state that the ID of each legion doesn't really matter. We just have to make sure the strengths are right and the type of unit is correct. So I have them written down on what we use. They could be recruited, and then here these legions can be upgraded to the veteran class. So this is the promotion box here, these ones up here. And then all this is the rest of the auxiliary. So the legions, there were 14, 15. So there's 15 legions on the board. And 6 of them are veteran classes already. That's why there's, out of the 15 legions, there's 10 more that can be recruited up to our 25. And then there's 19 more that can actually be upgraded to the veteran class. And that's why you see these here. There's 19 here. And then you have a higher class than even veteran. That's the Imperator. So legions can then go from veterans to Imperator. But the Imperator is limited. There's only that many, and that's all you can upgrade to there. The ships, there's 4 recruit class, and then they can be upgraded to veteran. So there's only 4. And now auxiliaries, we're allowed to have 25 auxiliaries. 4 are on the board. That means there's 21 here that can be recruited. Now, each auxiliary is allowed to be recruited in its upper class. So, see these? There's 6 recruit auxiliaries here, and there's 6 veteran types. So you can recruit. The names don't really matter. The veteran, it's the type of unit it is. That's auxiliary, that's auxiliary. Now, I don't want to take any more time up on this video. This is basically the setup. Just remember, it's 25 total legions that can be upgraded to veterans. And then some of them, because you're only limited to your counters, can be upgraded to imperators. The auxiliary, there could be a total of 25, and they can be upgraded to their veteran status. So that's what is sitting here in the Roman recruit box. And then what else you see now that I put out is this is after 1 AD. After 1 AD, we're going to increase the legion count from 25 to 27 or 28. So it'll have those upgrades plus the auxiliary upgrades. Now, what else you see here is a bunch of named legions. And these legions are only going to be allowed to be recruited from certain cities in certain areas. And you can produce veteran legions right out of the box. You don't have to recruit them, the recruit ones, and then promote them to veterans. And there's rules. You can look on that in the, I believe it's in the promotion section. So you can recruit veterans straight right after that, depending on the area that you are in.